Hi, I'm Sue Van Meeteren. I'm the mother of Elise Van Meeteren, who has just completed her 4 years at William and Mary.
Thanks so much for joining me today, Sue. So if you could just touch on Elise's junior career, what type of tournaments did she play as a junior? Was it mainly national competitions, international competitions? What did that look like?
Yeah, she played a mix of national and international. So she obviously went round all the grade 2 and grade 1s in the UK. And then when she was younger, she did a bit of Tennis Europe. And I mean, partly also because she's half Dutch. So
yeah,
wanted her to play in Holland.
Yeah, that helps.
And then later she also played some junior ITFs. She played a couple of senior ITFs as well, but yeah, that was where she got to. She did junior Wimbledon 1 year in qualies, but I think it helps that we're local. She was on the spot.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the level.
So
for a long time though, she was doing different sports as well. So she didn't really focus only on tennis until she was about 15. Up until that, she was also playing national hockey and athletics as well.
I remember she was playing field hockey even when we were training together at Northwood. She would always talk about hockey as well. I think that's really important as a junior to play as many sports as possible, just so you have that team environment as well, because tennis obviously is so individual.
I completely agree. Yeah, it really helped her. That was so brilliant about college tennis, was that finally she found tennis in a team atmosphere, and that was always what she'd missed prior to that. It's very lonely out on the tennis court on your own, and suddenly in a college team you're part of a team and it's completely different.
Whenever I talk to people, I always say it's like county week or county cup every week. And I always loved those competitions growing up. I always look forward to, being in a team environment. And I think college tennis does an amazing job of, having the individual sport, but in a team atmosphere. So what age did Elisa start to think about maybe college tennis and America as a route? Do you remember what age it was?
I think it was around about the age of 13.
Yeah.
And the academy that she was playing in brought in an agent to talk about the opportunities in America. Actually, it wasn't Pippa, but they brought somebody in.
Yeah.
But it was the first time that I'd even heard of those opportunities to go and play in America. And it was like, hallelujah, because for me, Elise was never going to be a professional. That wasn't what she was aiming for.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was, now it all makes sense. Now there's a rationale, to get a most brilliant education free out of all the effort that you've put in. It was really worth it. Oh my goodness, it has been worth it.
And do you think that she had that in the back of her mind then throughout her, later on in her junior career?
Definitely.
It was more working towards, which I want to kind of compete and see which schools I can get into, because we'll go into her choice of school later on. But how did you guys come about Pippa then, if, originally the agent wasn't Pippa?
Yes. Yeah.
Was it at tournaments?
I think it was just people talking at tournaments.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people in the peer group seemed to have gone to Pippa. So we thought, right, that's where we'll go.
Yeah.
That's how we got onto Pippa. And Pippa, to be honest, was much more on it. I mean, I think if I'd been that other agent, I would have followed up with all the parents that were there and would have started a conversation. And that person didn't.
Yeah.
Whereas Pippa was always kind of on it. And that's quite reassuring, because you want somebody that's on it and following up stuff.
Oh, definitely.
Very organised.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, there's so many steps that you need to take in consideration. NCAA rules, I didn't even know what those were. And you have to, fill out forms and do this the right way, and eligibility rules and all of that stuff. So when they started working together, I'm guessing Elisa was around 16, 17?
Yes, that's right, yes.
And how did Pippa and Elisa kind of work through what they wanted to get out of the school? You mentioned that academics was also important.
Yeah, it really was.
And obviously Elisa ended up choosing William and Mary as her first school, because she's now going to graduate and go again. But what was that like, going through those steps with Pippa?
Well, the most fantastic thing about Pippa is that she mapped it out. You know, we didn't have a clue what was good. We didn't know what was good tennis-wise. We didn't know what was good academic-wise. We didn't know, you know, whether we'd have a big choice or a little choice. And for Elisa, the academics were always going to be actually slightly more important than the tennis. So she definitely wanted somewhere where she could feel, I've not sort of compromised on the academics in order to play tennis. She wanted to have a really academic school and play tennis. And of course, then there were some challenges, because, I mean, you know, we looked at Ivy League school and weren't sure whether you could get scholarships there. But Pippa just mapped everything out. Just things like, can you take a gap year? Can you know, what's getting your SATs organised? What's a good score? What kind of UTR do you need? What, you know, she did so much level setting with us to kind of manage our expectations around what was possible and what Lisa's choices were likely to be.
Yeah, and I can imagine that's really reassuring as a parent, because it takes off that stress of you not knowing, you know, is this the right decision? Because it is a massive decision at the end of the day. It's 4 years of sending your child somewhere. You want to try and make sure that it's, you know, the right one. And I think for my process, academics wasn't as high on the list, but for my sister Scarlett, it actually was higher. And I think it's really hard when there's such a massive amount of schools. You don't know, you know, what's going to be better for you and your degree. You don't know what's going to be. Some teams change coaches, they change rankings, all of this stuff. So I think having someone there that kind of guides you through, and as you said, like maps it all out, must have been, you know, really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And also silly things like, you know, when you do your first SATs, is that score good enough, or do we go do it again? You know, what does good actually look like? And she was very helpful in saying, you know, no, actually go and do that paper again, because you can do better. And so we did.
That's great. And once, you know, Elisa had committed to William and Mary, did Pippa still continue that relationship? It wasn't just kind of like, oh, okay, you're signed, you're done, you know, not speaking anymore? Or, you know, did she follow up and check in with her?
Oh yes, definitely, and also she gave really good advice, because Lisa went to visit 3 universities first of all and fell in love with William and Mary, and that was kind of when she saw William and Mary, she sort of went, oh, this is where I really want to be. There wasn't a place at William and Mary, and Pippa was really good, because she just said, hold your nerve, you know, wait. So we did go and see, or Lisa went to see one other, and I think then she was planning to go to another, and then finally, quite late, I mean, for me it was nerve-wrackingly late, William and Mary did come through and say, we've got a place for Elisa now, and it was like, hallelujah. So Pippa was good. She said, hold on, hold your nerve, you know, don't give up. If that's what you really want, hold for it.
I think that advice is also just so valuable, because when you're going through the signing process, it's so nerve-wracking of, okay, do I sign to this school now? Will I get a better offer somewhere else? Do I visit somewhere else? You said that she visited, you know, 3 schools, and she had that feeling when she was at William and Mary. I had the same feeling when I, you know, was at the school that I chose, ODU. It was like, yep, this is the place for me. And you don't really know if it's the right way to go about it. You know, people do verbal commitments and official signings and all of this, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know what to do. So I think that's really great that, you know, Elisa had someone like Pippa telling her, don't commit to somewhere else, stick kind of to your plan A. So as a parent, you know, what advice would you give to other parents in terms of, you know, using Pippa to you know, all of her different abilities, but also going through the process, because I know it's quite nerve-wracking for parents as well as the players. What advice would you give to other parents?
First of all, I would say do it, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel a bit worried that life is never going to be as good again for Elise. She's just had 4 brilliant years, and I'm slightly worried that, you know, life's going to be an anticlimax after that. But anyway, that aside, I would definitely say it. I think somebody like Pippa just sort of takes away the worry. You know, she knows the coaches, she knows the schools, she knows, you know, process, of course. Yeah. And then just see things like, you know, what the video clips got to look like, and, you know, who can organise that for you, and, you know, what forms you've got to do, and, you know, all that sort of process stuff. And, and just sort of ongoing advice. I know when Elisa wanted to do a master's, she was back in touch with Pippa saying, you know, just what's your thoughts on this? And you know, so Pippa's there as a kind of a sounding board throughout their time in college as well. Just in case something they need extra advice.
Because a couple of people, you know, think about the transfer, or obviously now with COVID and everything that happened with the 5th year as an option. Yeah. How was that in terms of when Elisa finished and graduated from William & Mary? What was it like having someone to, you know, go back on and be like, hi, I'm going through this process again? Because I know, I mean, my boyfriend, he transferred, and having Pippa there throughout his whole transfer journey was a game changer, because she knows, as you said, the coaches, she knows people at these schools, and she's always talking and has relationships with these people rather than just going in like completely cold.
Yes, I think that's true. Elisa was probably, I mean, after COVID, I think almost all the, it seems like everybody took that 5th year option, didn't they? They all, I think that's the norm.
I think everyone was like, I'm not ready for the real world. Let me just hold on to another year of eligibility. I definitely did. As soon as it was given, I texted my coach straight away. I think every 5th year senior that could and stay at their school or go and take another year somewhere else, I think everyone I know definitely did, because everyone was like, I love college tennis. I'm going to stay for another year.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So Elisa had the same, but she wanted to do business. But she could only do 1 year. Yeah. And current college that she was at didn't have a 1 year business course, or it did, but it was too analytical. She didn't want to do it. But she's always been quite sort of competitive on the academic side as well as the tennis side. Yes. So she sort of set her sights on getting quite a top business school.
Yeah, it's an amazing achievement up there to do business as a master's at Northwestern. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. And to be on the tennis team also, which of course was the main thing, because if you've only got a year at another university, then being in a team from day one, of course, it just gives you a head start. I had 2 other kids that went to UK university, and it's tough. You know, you get chucked in and you don't know anybody, and, you know, half the kids are stuck in their rooms and, you know, struggling with mental health and self-esteem. And Elisa didn't have any of that, even though she was a million miles from home, or at least it felt like that. Yes. She was straight in from day one, surrounded by a team, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely, touching on that a bit more, I feel like when you go, you know, you're an international student and you're going to a place where you literally know 0 people, just for parents that are watching this, having you immediately are going into a family-based environment where you're going to be with people that are like-minded most of the time, because you have a, you know, love of tennis, and you pretty much have the same values in terms of, you know, working hard, and you've done tennis for majority of your life. So, you know, like managing social life, work life, tennis.
Exactly.
And you, even bigger than just tennis, you meet other athletes so quickly, because older girls on your team or older people on your team already have relationships with other teams, whether they're living, you know, with other teams or just being in close proximity with other athletes. And I think that for me was massive because, as you said, like my friends who went to UK universities, or Scarlett's friends even that went during COVID, had a complete opposite experience than she did, because you can't really meet anyone. And it's almost like a cheat code, because you're going straight into an environment where you're meeting like 50 people off the bat regardless, because you've got coaches, staff, team members, housemates for other athletes. And I think that's like just amazing that you can just go somewhere and, you know, my best friends are still girls that I met at college, and I still speak to them to this day. So I think that's something that's also reassuring as a parent, because obviously you want your kid to go and thrive and meet people. That's one of the best things about college, especially being a tennis player. You go and you meet people that have done the exact same thing that you have for so long.
Exactly.
And it takes away that pressure of like, oh, will I meet anyone? You know?
I think so. And Elisa always had that going through school. You know, she stayed in school right to 18.
Yes.
But of course she used to miss chunks of school because she was traveling to tournaments, or she couldn't go to the party because she had a match the next day. There was always sort of compromises on her social life and on the, you know, homework in the car and at night and all the rest of it. And suddenly she felt like quite a freak, actually. She felt like nobody else is having this life. And then in America, she's surrounded by people who have been doing that all their lives, exactly the same, just like international students, fellow athletes. And not only is it sort of the norm, it's also got a respect. You know, as an athlete, you're respected. Oh, well done, you've really achieved something. You know, whereas here it's kind of like, oh, she's a bit dull, she's never out for the parties, or whatever it is. Yeah,
I completely agree. I think there was something so special about meeting people that have done the exact same thing as you have throughout your entire childhood, and doing it in different sports as well. Like meeting, you know, like we had women's basketball my freshman year was in our dorms with us, and I roomed with lacrosse, and it was seen as such a like honor almost in getting into the Division 1. Like the Americans that I met, you know, it was seen as such a huge achievement going to a Division 1 school. And I was like, oh, I wish I'd gone to high school in the States, because it's it's seen as the goal, rather than people being like, oh, you know, oh, you've got another tennis tournament at the weekend, kind of, why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So last question, just to wrap everything up, because I feel like we've gone through it, and just want to direct back to Pippa and Stars and Stripes. I know you said already go through Pippa and stuff. Is there anything that you guys would have changed, or, you know, maybe done differently with Elisa in terms of going through the process, or wish you'd maybe got more out of Pippa in some aspect? Or would you say just in general, communicate as much as possible, use Pippa, you know, for her tools and her networking as much as possible?
No, I would say definitely use Pippa for her tools and her contacts and her process and everything. I mean, I think we were probably quite, you know, after Pippa showed us how, we were probably quite on it. So, you know, doing your own research about which are the academic universities and which are not, and which specialise in, I don't know, business, well, at least always wanted to do business and which didn't. So that was probably quite helpful. I mean, I think the only thing I'm still not sure about is the levels and everything, because Elisa, of course, there was a pressure at the end because she had to get her UT up for a certain level to get accepted to William Mary. And then when you get there, you think, well, that's funny, because there's an awful lot of Division 1 tennis schools that are not, you know, that level. So there was that was the only thing I wasn't quite ever sure about, was what standard of tennis did they have to be at.
I agree with that. I think that there's obviously a lot of this is showing my age here, but I didn't have UTR when I was going. So I was, you know, lucky enough to play Junior Wimbledon and Roehampton, and that was kind of showing of the level, but there wasn't a specific number that I had to reach. And I think that's actually quite tough and detrimental. I would definitely, as a 17-year-old, be thinking about that in matches. I can imagine that that's quite tough.
It was very stressful.
And I know it's really specific on even like games lost and sets and that. And I think that that's actually not very good just in tennis development wise. So I think I would say to people that are watching it now, really try and not focus on that UTR number, because if you just go out and enjoy it, your results hopefully will come. And as you said, once you're out there, no one's really bothered about UTR anyway, because your level is basically how you do against your teammates, essentially. That's how coaches, it doesn't matter if you're a 12 UTR, because if you're losing every week in practice sets to your teammate, the coach won't put you above them. So I think, I've heard a lot about that, because obviously when Scarlett went through the same process, she also had to meet a UTR and she was injured, and that was a problem, because obviously then that messes with it. And I was like, this is so much. I am so glad I didn't have to worry about that when I was going through that process, because it would definitely, I don't want to be in a match thinking about, oh, if I lose this game, it's going to hurt my position for a scholarship. So that is a really good point. It's a very good point.
Having to reach a certain level by a certain date.
Yeah, I definitely think parents should try and not hyperfixate on that as much. Just, I know it's hard. I know it must have been really hard, but I think that would be really tough on the kid when playing matches. And if anything, it's not going to help, because if any, you know what I mean? Like, you're only going to be thinking about that, and then there's only one way that's going to go.
Exactly.
But that's a really good point. So thank you so much, Sue, for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, good luck with your match tomorrow now.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.